The coffee in my hand was still warm when my son looked straight through me and said, "You're dead weight, Mom." I didn't flinch, just set the cup down gently as his words settled into the silence between us. Behind his back, my fingers were already scrolling through the mortgage documents, the daycare schedules, the business loan I'd co-signed. The same hands that had held him through every nightmare now held the keys to everything he'd built on my foundation. That's when I knew, if I was dead weight, it was time to let him carry his own load. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Eleanor Fitzgerald stood in the marble-tiled entryway of her son's sprawling home in Scottsdale, Arizona, feeling the blast of air conditioning wash over her sun-warmed skin. At 73 years old, she'd made this drive countless times, 35 minutes from her small rental in Tempe through the desert heat that shimmered off the asphalt like water. Today, she had come bearing the contracts Camden had left at her place during Sunday dinner, papers he needed for a critical investor meeting at 2 o'clock. She clutched the leather portfolio against her chest, her sensible flats silent on the cool tile as she made her way toward the home office. The house was a monument to success. Vaulted ceilings, abstract art on pristine white walls, furniture that looked expensive because it was. Eleanor had been here for the housewarming 5 years ago, had helped them move in, had scrubbed the bathrooms and unpacked boxes, while Camden and his wife, Simone, attended a crucial networking event. The office door stood half open, and Eleanor could hear the rapid-fire clicking of keyboard keys, the frustrated sigh she recognized from Camden's childhood when homework wasn't cooperating. She knocked gently on the doorframe. "Camden, sweetheart, you forgot these," she said, holding up the portfolio. He didn't look up from his dual-monitor setup, his jaw clenched, his expensive shirt rolled up at the sleeves. "Just leave them on the table." Eleanor stepped inside, her eyes sweeping across the chaos that seemed at odds with the rest of the immaculate house. Energy drink cans, at least a dozen, cluttered every surface. Takeout containers released the faint smell of days-old pad thai. Papers covered the floor like a snowdrift. The sleek glass desk was barely visible beneath the debris. "Have you eaten today?" Eleanor asked, moving toward the desk. "I could make you something quick. There's still time before your meeting." "Mom." The word came out sharp, almost a bark. Camden's fingers stopped moving. He spun in his chair to face me, and Eleanor felt something in her chest constrict at the look in his eyes. They were cold, distant, like she was an interruption rather than her mother. "I don't need you to mother me. I'm 44 years old." "I know that, honey. I just thought you might be hungry." "That's exactly the problem." Camden stood, his 6-foot frame towering over her. Eleanor had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. "You're always thinking, always inserting yourself, always hovering like I'm still 12 years old." "I'm not hovering. You called me last night and asked me to grab these papers because you didn't have time to drive back to Tempe. And I appreciate that, but you didn't have to drive all the way here. You could have scanned them and emailed them. You said you needed the originals. You said the investors—" "Camden, is your mother staying for lunch?" The voice came from behind Eleanor, smooth and sharp as polished glass. Simone appeared in the doorway, her manicured hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, her phone in one hand, a green smoothie in the other, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Because we have the Riverside Partners meeting in 90 minutes, and we still need to go over the pitch deck." Camden ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Eleanor had seen a million times, her little boy, frustrated and overwhelmed. Except he wasn't little anymore, and the frustration seemed directed entirely at her. "No, she's not staying," Camden said, turning back to his screens. Eleanor gripped the portfolio tighter, her knuckles whitening. "Of course not. I understand you're busy. I'll just leave these and—" "Honestly, Mom." Camden spun back around, and something in his expression made Eleanor take a step back. His eyes were hard, his mouth set in a line she didn't recognize. "You're dead weight." The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Eleanor felt them hit her chest, stealing her breath. "Excuse me?" she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You heard me." Camden stood, walking around the desk to face her directly. "I can't keep making time for these drop-ins and emergency runs and constant interruptions. I have a company to run. I have employees depending on me. I have investors breathing down my neck. I don't have time to be managed by my mother like I'm still living in your house." Simone leaned against the doorframe, her manicured fingers tapping against her phone screen. "What Camden is trying to say, Eleanor, is that we're building something significant here. We're scaling, and we can't afford to be weighed down by, well, by obligations that don't serve the larger vision." Eleanor's mouth went dry. She glanced past them, through the office door into the vast living room beyond. There, on the white leather sectional that cost more than Eleanor's car, sat 9-year-old Ivy, Camden's daughter from his first marriage. The little girl had her tablet propped on her knees, but her eyes weren't on the screen. They were fixed on the office door, on the scene unfolding within. When Ivy caught Eleanor's gaze, she looked away quickly, her small shoulders hunching forward. Ivy, who Eleanor picked up from Desert Willow Elementary every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Ivy, who did her homework at Eleanor's kitchen table while munching on apple slices and peanut butter. Ivy, who called Eleanor Grandma Ellie and saved her drawings in a special folder. "I didn't realize," Eleanor said carefully, "that helping you was weighing you down." Camden had already turned back to his computer, dismissing her. "It's not personal, Mom. It's just, look, I need you to understand that we have systems now, processes. We're not the startup we were 3 years ago. We're professionalizing, and that means boundaries." "Boundaries," Eleanor repeated, the word tasting strange in her mouth. "Yes, boundaries." Simone took a long sip of her smoothie, her eyes never leaving Eleanor's face. "Like, for instance, maybe calling before you drive all the way out here, or using technology instead of insisting on these face-to-face handoffs. We're trying to model efficiency for the team." Eleanor felt something cold settle in her stomach, something that was pushing out the hurt and replacing it with clarity. She pulled her worn leather notebook from her purse, a gift from her late husband Thomas 30 years ago. The cover was soft with age, the pages filled with her neat handwriting. Appointments, grocery lists, birthdays, recipes. The architecture of a life spent in service to others. She clicked her pen and wrote, her hand steady, "Dead weight floats when you stop carrying it." She underlined the words once, then closed the notebook with a soft snap. Camden was typing again, the keys clicking like teeth. On the wall above his desk hung a large framed photograph from 3 years ago, the grand opening of Apex Innovations, his tech consulting firm. In the photo, Camden cut a red ribbon with oversized scissors, Simone beside him, both of them grinning at the camera. Eleanor had taken that picture. She'd also paid the $8,000 deposit for the event venue when Camden's primary investor had to pull out at the last minute due to a family emergency. The investor had been fictional. Eleanor had learned that 6 months later when she'd overheard Simone on the phone laughing about how they'd played the sympathy card with his mom. Eleanor's phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A calendar reminder. Pick up Ivy, 3:15 p.m. Monday. She scrolled down. More reminders. Camden mortgage payment due 15th, $3,200. Ivy's piano lesson Thursday, 4 p.m., $75. Veterinarian Simone's dog Bella, Friday, 11 a.m. Camden's car payment due 18th, $847. Grocery run for Camden's house Sunday. Eleanor's thumb hovered over the calendar app, but she didn't open it fully. Not here. Not yet. She needed to be anywhere but here when she started making changes. "Well," she said, adjusting her purse strap over her shoulder, "I'll let you get back to your important work." Simone's phone chimed, and she glanced at it, her perfectly shaped eyebrows rising. "Oh, actually, Eleanor, while you're here, can you still take Bella to the groomer tomorrow? Our assistant quit, and with the investor roadshow next week, we're absolutely slammed." In the living room, Ivy's head snapped up.
Eleanor saw the girl's face, a flash of something that looked like anger, or maybe disappointment. Her mouth opened as if she might say something, then closed again. She looked down at her tablet, but her hands weren't moving. Eleanor felt her smile stretch across her face, the kind of smile she'd perfected over decades, the smile that said everything's fine when nothing was fine. Of course, text me the appointment details. You're a lifesaver, Simone said, though her tone suggested she was stating a fact rather than expressing gratitude. Eleanor walked past her daughter-in-law, through the living room where Ivy sat motionless, and out the front door into the blazing Arizona afternoon. The heat hit her like a wall, but she barely registered it. She walked to her 2014 Honda Accord, parked in the circular driveway next to Camden's leased Tesla Model S and Simone's Mercedes GLE, which both of them she co-signed when their credit scores were just a hair too low for optimal rates. She sat in the driver's seat, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her fingers ached. The leather was hot enough to burn, but she didn't move. She stared at the house through the windshield. The house with her name on the deed, her credit backing the mortgage, her signature on the homeowner's insurance. The house where she was dead weight. Eleanor's phone sat in the cup holder, face up. She picked it up with trembling fingers and opened her banking app. The checking account showed her Social Security deposit from last week. Below it, a list of recent transactions. Transfer to Camden Fitzgerald, $3,200, mortgage. Payment to Desert Willow Elementary, $850, Ivy's tuition, half. Payment to Tesla Financial, $1,100, Camden's car payment, late fee included. Payment to Whole Foods, $487, grocery run for Camden's house. Payment to Little Mozart's Music, $75. Transfer to Simone Fitzgerald, $500, emergency, never repaid. Eleanor scrolled back further. The pattern repeated month after month after month. Years of it. Her retirement savings, her Social Security, her late husband's life insurance payout that was supposed to carry her through her old age, all of it flowing like a river into Camden's life. She opened her text messages. The thread with Camden was a litany. Camden, can you grab Ivy? Meeting running late. Camden, need $2K for the investor dinner. Will Venmo you back Friday. Never Venmo'd back. Camden, emergency, can you take Ivy for the weekend? Simone and I have a conference in San Diego. Camden, did you pay the mortgage? Thought I sent you money. He hadn't. Camden, can you pick up Bella from the vet? They close at 6. Camden, Simone's car is making a noise. Can you take it to your mechanic?
Eleanor scrolled and scrolled. Hundreds of messages, spanning 5 years. Requests, demands, assumptions. Not one message asking how she was doing. Not one inquiry about her health, her life, her day. The only questions were logistical. Can you? Will you? When can you? She switched to her email and searched for Camden Fitzgerald. The results filled her screen. Mortgage statements. Co-borrower, Eleanor Fitzgerald. Car loan statements. Co-signer, Eleanor Fitzgerald. Business loan documents, collateral, Eleanor Fitzgerald retirement account, $75,000. Credit card statements, authorized user, Camden Fitzgerald, $12,000 balance. Homeowner's insurance, policyholder, Eleanor Fitzgerald. Property tax bills, co-owner, Eleanor Fitzgerald. Eleanor's heart hammered in her chest. She'd known she was helping. She'd known she was supporting Camden's dreams, but seeing it all laid out like this, in black and white, in numbers that didn't lie, it took her breath away. She wasn't dead weight. She was the foundation. She was the walls. She was the roof. She was the entire structure that Camden and Simone had built their lives upon, and they were calling her a burden. Eleanor opened her worn notebook again, flipping past grocery lists and appointment reminders to a blank page. She began to write, her handwriting neat despite her shaking hands. What I pay for. Mortgage, $3,200 a month. Property taxes, $650 a month. Camden's car payment, $847 a month.
Simone's car payment, $923 a month. Groceries for their house, approximately $400 a month. Ivy's private school, half, $850 a month. Ivy's activities, approximately $200 a month. Utilities when they forget, approximately $300 a month. Emergency transfers, $500 to $2,000 a month. Total, approximately $8,000 to $10,000 per month. My income, Social Security, $1,847 a month. Pension from nursing, $1,200 a month. Total, $3,047 a month. Eleanor stared at the numbers. She was spending 3 times what she earned, every month, for 5 years. She'd been liquidating Thomas's life insurance. She'd been draining her retirement savings. She'd taken out a reverse mortgage on the small house she'd owned in Tempe, the house she'd sold 2 years ago to help Camden with the business expansion, and was now renting an apartment because she had nowhere else to go. She'd given Camden everything, and he called her dead weight? Eleanor's vision blurred, and she realized tears were sliding down her cheeks. She wiped them away roughly, angry at herself for crying. She didn't have time for tears. She had decisions to make. She pulled out her phone and took photographs of her notebook pages. Then she opened her camera roll and began scrolling back through months of photos. There, the text from Camden asking for $5,000 for critical business supplies. She'd sent it the same day. 3 weeks later, she'd seen Simone's Instagram post showing off a new Gucci handbag tagged with #treatingmyself, #bosswife. Eleanor took a screenshot. She kept scrolling. More texts, more requests, more promises to pay you back next week that never materialized. She screenshotted everything. A knock on her window made her jump. She looked up to see Ivy standing by the car, her tablet tucked under her arm, her eyes red-rimmed. Eleanor rolled down the window. "Sweetheart, what are you doing out here? It's too hot." "Are you okay, Grandma Ellie?" Ivy's voice was small, and it cracked on the last word. "Oh," Eleanor felt her heart break a little more. "I'm fine, honey. Just checking some things on my phone." "I heard what Dad said. I heard him call you that thing." "Oh, sweetie, it's not fair." Ivy looked up, and her eyes were fierce despite the tears. "You do everything for us. You pick me up from school, you help me with my homework, you make me real food, not just takeout. You listen when I talk. You're not dead weight. You're the best person I know." Eleanor's throat closed up. She opened the car door and pulled Ivy into a hug, feeling the girl's thin arms wrap around her neck. "Thank you, baby. That means everything to me. Are you going to stop coming over?" Ivy whispered into her shoulder. Eleanor pulled back, looking into her granddaughter's face. "I will always be here for you, Ivy. Always. But some things might need to change." "Good," Ivy said, with the simple certainty of childhood. "Because they're mean to you, and you shouldn't let people be mean to you. You're a smart girl." "I know." Ivy managed a small smile. "You taught me that." "Ivy!" Simone's voice cut across the driveway. She stood in the doorway, her phone pressed to her ear. "Get inside. You have Mandarin tutoring in 20 minutes. Ivy rolled her eyes, a gesture Eleanor knew she'd picked up from Simone, and squeezed Eleanor's hand. "I love you, Grandma Ellie." "I love you too, sweetheart." Eleanor watched Ivy jog back to the house, her heart aching. Then she put the car in reverse and drove away from the palace she'd built for people who saw her as an inconvenience. The drive back to Tempe took 40 minutes in midday traffic. Eleanor drove on autopilot, her mind racing. By the time she pulled into the parking lot of her apartment complex, a modest 2-story building with exterior walkways and a pool that was always slightly too cold, she had made a decision. She wasn't going to fight. She wasn't going to argue. She wasn't going to defend herself or plead her case or beg to be seen. She was simply going to stop. Eleanor climbed the stairs to her second-floor unit, unlocked the door, and stepped into the cool dimness of her small living room. The apartment was tidy but sparse. Most of her furniture had temporarily gone to Camden's house and never come back. She had a couch, a coffee table, a TV on a stand. The kitchen was barely bigger than a closet. The bedroom held a queen bed and a dresser. This was what was left after a lifetime of giving.
Eleanor set her purse on the coffee table and pulled out her phone. She opened her contacts and scrolled to Rosa Delgado, neighbor. Rosa had moved in downstairs 6 months ago, and they'd bonded over morning walks and a shared love of trashy reality TV. Rosa was 68, a retired social worker, and the kind of woman who said exactly what she thought. Eleanor typed, "Are you home? I need to talk to someone." The response came 30 seconds later. "Come down, I'll make coffee." Rosa's apartment was a mirror image of Eleanor's layout, but felt completely different. Where Eleanor's space was sparse, Rosa's was cluttered with life. Photos on every surface, colorful blankets thrown over furniture, plants in various states of health crowding the windowsills. Rosa took one look at Eleanor's face and pulled her into a hug. "Oh, mija, what happened?" Eleanor felt the dam break. She cried into Rosa's shoulder, great heaving sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and ancient inside her. Rosa just held her, making soothing sounds until the tears finally slowed. "Okay," Rosa said, guiding Eleanor to the couch. "Sit. I'll get the coffee and you'll tell me everything." So Eleanor did. She told Rosa about the drive to Scottsdale, about Camden's words, about Simone's dismissal. She showed Rosa the notebook with the calculations, the screenshots of the texts, the banking app with its damning history of transfers. Rosa read through everything in silence, her expression growing darker with each page. Finally, she set down the phone and looked at Eleanor with eyes that blazed. "That hijo mi puta, that ungrateful, entitled little—" She cut herself off, visibly controlling her anger. "Eleanor, mi amor, you know what you are?" "Dead weight," Eleanor said, the words bitter. "No, you're not dead weight. Dead weight sinks. You're the life raft. You're the rescue boat. You've been keeping them afloat this whole time, and they don't even see it. I just wanted to help him succeed." And you did. You helped him more than a mother should have to. But help has a limit, Eleanor, and you've passed that limit by miles. Rosa squeezed her hands. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? Eleanor looked at her friend, feeling something shift inside her. Something that had been bending for years suddenly straightened, hardened. "I'm going to let them carry their own weight." Rosa smiled, fierce and proud. "Now you're talking. What do you need?" "I need to make some calls," Eleanor said, her voice steady now. "Starting with the mortgage company." "I'll make more coffee," Rosa said, standing. "This is going to take a while." Eleanor pulled her phone back out and opened her contacts. Her finger hovered over Nadine Chen, lawyer. Nadine had handled Thomas's estate after he died. She was sharp, no nonsense, and had told Eleanor more than once that she was too generous for her own good. Eleanor hit call. Nadine answered on the second ring. "Eleanor, it's been ages. How are you?" "I need help. I need to know what I'm legally entitled to do, and I need to do it quickly." There was a pause. Then, "Tell me everything." So, Eleanor did. She went through the whole story again. The mortgage, the co-signed loans, the business loan with her retirement as collateral, the cars, the credit cards, the temporary help that had become permanent. She told Nadine about the dead weight comment, about Simone's dismissal, about Ivy's tears in the driveway. When she finished, Nadine was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Eleanor, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you want to hurt them, or do you want to protect yourself?" Eleanor considered. "I want to protect myself, and I want them to understand that actions have consequences."
Good answer. Here's what we're going to do. For the next hour, Eleanor took notes as Nadine walked her through her options. Some were simple, removing herself as an authorized user on credit cards, stopping voluntary payments. Others were more complex, the mortgage, the business loan, the co-signed vehicles, but everything was possible. Everything was legal. The key, Nadine said, is documentation. You need to document everything. Every payment you've made, every text message, every promise that was broken. If they try to claim you agreed to these arrangements, you need proof that you were being taken advantage of. I have proof, Eleanor said, looking at her phone full of screenshots. Then we move forward. I'll draft the necessary letters today. We'll start with formal notices that you're withdrawing your financial support. Then we'll tackle the mortgage and the loans. How long will it take? That depends on how they respond. But Eleanor, you need to be prepared for them to be very, very angry. Eleanor thought about Camden's cold eyes, Simone's dismissive smile, Ivy's tears in the driveway. I think I can handle their anger. Good. I'll call you tomorrow with the first round of documents. After Nadine hung up, Eleanor sat back against Rose's couch, feeling lighter than she had in years. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in her chest, but it was mixed now with something else. Purpose. Rosa handed her a fresh cup of coffee. So, what's the verdict? I'm pulling the foundation. Let's see if their house can stand on its own. Rosa raised her coffee mug in a toast. To dead weight.
To dead weight, Eleanor echoed, and for the first time all day, she smiled for real. That night, Eleanor sat at her small kitchen table with her laptop open and her notebook beside her. She'd created a spreadsheet, something Thomas had taught her years ago when he was alive. Column by column, she listed everything. Column A, what I pay for. Column B, monthly cost. Column C, total paid, 5 years. Column D, date to stop. Mortgage, $3,200 per month equals $192,000 total. Stop, next billing cycle. Property taxes, $650 per month equals $39,000 total. Stop, next billing cycle. Camden's car, $847 per month equals $50,820 total. Stop, contact lender. Simone's car, $923 per month equals $55,380 total. Stop, contact lender. Groceries, $400 per month equals $24,000 total. Stop, immediately. School tuition, $850 per month equals $51,000 total. Stop, end of semester. Activities, $200 per month equals $12,000 total. Stop, end of month. Emergency transfers, $1,500 per month equals $90,000 total. Stop immediately. Eleanor stared at the total at the bottom of column C. $514,200. $500,000 in 5 years? Her entire retirement, Thomas's life insurance, the equity from their house, her savings, all of it, gone. And she'd been called dead weight? Eleanor's hands shook as she typed one more line at the bottom of the spreadsheet. They wanted me to be lighter. I'll show them what weightless feels like. She saved the document, titled Foundation Removal, August 2024, and backed it up to 3 different cloud services. Then she opened her calendar and began the process of canceling. Every reminder that involved Camden or Simone, deleted. Every recurring event, removed. The only thing she kept was her standing Monday, Wednesday, Friday time with Ivy, and even that she modified, adding a note, revisit after September 1st. Her phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Bella's groomer appointment is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Address is in the email I sent you. Thanks. Eleanor stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, I won't be able to make it. You'll need to find another arrangement. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, what do you mean you can't make it? We're counting on you. Eleanor typed, I have other commitments. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Eleanor, this is extremely inconvenient. We don't have time to. Eleanor blocked the number. She sat there, staring at her phone, waiting for the guilt to crash over her. But it didn't come. Instead, she felt free. Another text came in, this time from Camden. "Mom, Simone says you're bailing on the dog groomer? What's going on?" Eleanor typed slowly, carefully. "I'm no longer available to help with these errands. You'll need to make other arrangements going forward." "Are you serious right now? We have the investor meeting tomorrow. We can't deal with this." "I understand you're busy. That's why I'm letting you know now, so you have time to find alternatives." "Mom, what the hell? You're being ridiculous. It's one appointment." Eleanor's finger hovered over the keyboard. Part of her, the old part, the part that had been bending for 44 years, wanted to apologize, to back down, to say she'd do it just this once. But she thought about Ivy's fierce eyes, about Rose's proud smile, and about the spreadsheet with its devastating total. She typed, "I'm dead weight, remember? Dead weight can't carry anything." She blocked Camden's number, too. Eleanor set down her phone and looked around her small apartment. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, she would start making the calls to banks and lenders. Tomorrow, she would start the legal process of removing herself from every document, every loan, every obligation. Tomorrow, she would start the earthquake. But tonight, she would sleep better than she had in 5 years. Eleanor pulled out her notebook one more time and wrote on a fresh page, "Day 1, I stopped carrying them. Let's see if they can walk on their own." She closed the notebook, turned off the lights, and went to bed. The foundation was already beginning to crack, and Camden and Simone had no idea what was coming. Eleanor woke at 5:47 a.m., 3 minutes before her alarm. The Arizona sunrise was just beginning to paint the sky outside her bedroom window in shades of pink and orange, but she'd been awake for the past 20 minutes, her mind already racing through the day ahead. She'd slept deeply for the first time in months, no anxiety dreams about missed payments or emergency calls from Camden. Just silence, just peace. She made coffee in her small kitchen, the familiar ritual grounding her. While it brewed, she opened her laptop at the kitchen table and pulled up the spreadsheet she'd created last night. The numbers looked even more stark in the morning light. $514,200 over 5 years. Her entire financial security drained away in service to people who saw her as an inconvenience. Eleanor's phone sat face down on the table. She hadn't checked it since blocking Camden and Simone last night. Part of her was afraid to look. Afraid of what messages might be waiting, what guilt might come flooding back. But Rose's words from yesterday echoed in her mind. "You're not dead weight, you're the life raft." She flipped the phone over. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, all from numbers she didn't recognize. Camden and Simone must have tried calling from different phones when they realized they were blocked. Eleanor didn't read the messages. Instead, she opened her email and found the message from Nadine Chen that had arrived at 6:15 a.m. "Documents ready for review. Call me when you're up." Eleanor hit dial, and Nadine answered immediately. "You're up early," Nadine said, her voice already sharp and focused despite the hour. "Couldn't sleep. Too much to do."
Good, because we need to move fast. I pulled the property records last night, and Eleanor, there are some things you need to know. Papers rustled in the background. The house in Scottsdale, you're listed as co-owner, correct? Yes. Camden said it was just for the mortgage application, that once his business stabilized, he'd refinance and take me off. He lied, or at minimum, he never followed through. You're still on the deed, and you're legally responsible for that mortgage. But here's the interesting part. The property has appreciated significantly. It's worth about $890,000 now. You bought it for $625,000 5 years ago. Eleanor felt her breath catch. I didn't know it had gone up that much. Desert real estate boom. But Eleanor, if you're on the deed as co-owner, you're entitled to half that equity. That's roughly $132,000 in equity that belongs to you, minus what's still owed on the mortgage. Eleanor's hand trembled around her coffee mug. Can I force a sale? You can petition for partition, yes. It would force them to either buy out your share or sell the property and split the proceeds. But that's nuclear option territory. Let's start with leverage. More rustling. I've drafted 3 documents. First, a formal notice that you're withdrawing from all voluntary financial support effective immediately. Second, a demand letter regarding the business loan. Your retirement account is still listed as collateral, and we need to address that. Third, a notice of intent to remove yourself as co-borrower on the vehicles. What will happen when they receive these? Nadine was quiet for a moment. They're going to panic. The mortgage payment is due in 10 days, and if you don't pay it, they'll be in default. The car payments are due around the same time. The business loan, that's trickier, but we can negotiate. Eleanor, I need you to be very clear about something. Once we send these letters, there's no going back. Camden and Simone will likely lawyer up, and this could get ugly. Eleanor thought about yesterday, the cold dismissal, the casual cruelty, Ivy's tears. I'm ready. All right then, I'll have a courier deliver these documents today. In the meantime, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go to the house, with a witness, and document everything that belongs to you. Furniture, heirlooms, anything you paid for or that was yours originally. Take photos, take videos, get receipts if you have them. Why? Because the moment they realize what's happening, they're going to lock you out, and if you have any hope of recovering your property, we need documentation that it was yours to begin with. Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine. You really think they'd do that? Eleanor, they've been taking your money for 5 years and called you dead weight when you dared to show up. Yes, I think they'd do that. After she hung up with Nadine, Eleanor sat for a long moment, staring at her phone. Then she opened her contacts and scrolled to Rose's number. Are you free this morning? I need a witness for something. The response came within seconds. Give me 20 minutes. I'll bring my good camera. At 8:30 a.m., Eleanor and Rosa pulled into Camden's driveway and Rose's beat-up Toyota Camry. The Tesla and Mercedes were both gone. Camden and Simone must have left for work already, but Ivy would be home. School didn't start until 9:15 and the bus came at 8:50. Eleanor used her key, the one that Camden had given her for emergencies, and let them in. The house was quiet, the air conditioning humming softly. From upstairs, she could hear the faint sound of music, Ivy getting ready in her room. Jesus Christo, Rosa breathed, looking around the massive entryway. This is what your money bought? Some of it, Eleanor said quietly. She pulled out her phone and opened the Notes app where she'd made a list last night of everything that had been hers originally. Let's start in the living room. The antique clock on the mantel had been Thomas's grandfather's. Eleanor photographed it from multiple angles while Rosa filmed. The Persian rug and the dining room had come from Eleanor's old house. Thomas had bought it on their 20th anniversary. The china cabinet and all its contents had been Eleanor's mother's. The paintings on the walls, 3 of them original works by a local artist Eleanor had commissioned years ago. They moved through the house methodically. In the garage, Eleanor found boxes of her belongings that had been temporarily stored 3 years ago. Photo albums, Thomas's military medals, her grandmother's quilts, all shoved in a corner behind Simone's expensive cycling equipment. They just left your stuff in boxes? Rose's voice was tight with anger. Eleanor ran her hand over a box labeled Eleanor's Christmas decorations. She hadn't seen these in years. Camden always said they didn't have room to display them. I guess it was easier to hide it than tell me they didn't want it. In the guest room closet, Eleanor found her mother's wedding dress, the one that she'd been saving to give to Ivy someday, crushed beneath a pile of Simone's out-of-season clothes. The delicate lace was yellowed and wrinkled. Rosa photographed everything while Eleanor fought back tears. Each discovery was another small betrayal, another piece of evidence that she'd never been valued, never been seen as anything more than a resource to be used. They were in the kitchen, documenting the Le Creuset cookware set Eleanor had bought and loaned to Camden, when they heard steps on the stairs. Grandma Ellie? Ivy appeared in the doorway, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her hair still damp from the shower. Her eyes widened when she saw Rosa with the camera. What are you doing?
Eleanor set down the pot she'd been holding. Hi, sweetheart. I'm taking pictures of some things that belong to me. Ivy's expression shifted, confusion giving way to understanding, then to something that looked almost like relief. Are you taking them back? Some of them, yes. Good. Ida came fully into the kitchen and sat on one of the bar stools. Dad and Simone were fighting this morning about you. Dad was really mad that you blocked them. Eleanor's stomach clenched. I'm sorry you had to hear that. I'm not. Ivy picked at the strap of her backpack. Simone said you were being manipulative. Dad said you were having some kind of breakdown, but I told them they were wrong. Ivy, I told them you were just tired of being treated like garbage. Ivy's chin lifted defiantly. Then Simone sent me to my room, but I heard them anyway. They were freaking out about money, about the mortgage or something. Rosa and Eleanor exchanged glances. The letters wouldn't be delivered until this afternoon, but Camden and Simone were already worried. They must have checked their accounts, seen that Eleanor's usual transfers hadn't come through. Your dad and Simone are going through some grown-up problems, but that's not your responsibility to worry about, okay? Are you going to stop picking me up from school? Ivy's voice was small now, vulnerable in a way that broke Eleanor's heart. Eleanor crossed the kitchen and pulled Ivy into a hug. Never. You and we're separate from all this. I will always be here for you, Ivy. Always. Promise? I promise. The sound of the school bus horn echoed from outside. Ivy grabbed her backpack and hugged Eleanor one more time, fierce and tight. I love you, Grandma Ellie. I love you too, baby. After Ivy left, Eleanor and Rosa finished their documentation in silence. They had over 300 photos and 40 minutes of video by the time they were done. As they were loading the last boxes into Rosa's car, the ones with Thomas's medals and Eleanor's photo albums, Eleanor's phone rang, an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. 10 seconds later, another call from a different unknown number. They figured out you're here, Rosa said, watching Eleanor's phone light up again and again. Let's go, Eleanor said, closing the trunk. She took one last look at the house she'd helped buy, the palace she'd helped build, and felt nothing but relief as she walked away from it. Back at her apartment, Eleanor and Rosa uploaded all the photos and videos to 3 different cloud storage services. Then Eleanor called Nadine back. I have the documentation. Good. The courier should be delivering the letters to Camden's office right about now. Eleanor, are you somewhere safe? Somewhere Camden doesn't have a key. I'm home. Why? Because he's going to come looking for you. When people realize they're losing access to resources they've come to depend on, they panic. And panic makes people unpredictable. As if on cue, Eleanor's doorbell rang. She and Rosa froze. The doorbell rang again, followed by heavy knocking. Eleanor, Mom, open the door! Camden's voice, muffled but unmistakable. Eleanor's heart hammered. He's here! Don't open the door, Nadine said sharply. Do not engage. Let him leave on his own, and if he doesn't, call the police. The knocking continued, harder now. Mom, I know you're in there. We need to talk about this. You can't just cut us off without warning. Without warning? Eleanor repeated softly, bitterly. Rosa put a hand on her shoulder. This is insane, Camden's voice rose. You're being completely irrational. Over one comment, one stupid comment, and you're going to destroy everything? Eleanor walked to the window and carefully peered through the blinds. Camden was standing at her door, still in his work clothes, expensive slacks and a button-down. His face was red, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Simone stood a few feet behind him, arms crossed, her expression furious. Eleanor, Nadine's voice was calm but firm on the phone, record this. Audio at minimum, video if you can safely do it. Rosa was already pulling out her phone, positioning herself by the window to get footage. Mom, Camden pounded on the door again. Open this door right now. We need to talk about those letters. You can't do this. One comment? Eleanor called through the door, her voice steadier than she felt. Camden, this isn't about one comment. This is about 5 years of being used and dismissed. Used? Are you kidding me? We gave you purpose. We gave you a reason to get up in the morning. What would you even do without us? Eleanor felt the words hit her like physical blows. Rosa's hand tightened on her shoulder. You need to leave. We can discuss this through lawyers. Lawyers? Simone's voice cut in, sharp and shrill. You're bringing lawyers into this? Over what? Over us not being grateful enough? You want a medal for helping your own son? I want, Eleanor said, her voice rising,
to stop funding a life where I'm treated as dead weight." There was a moment of silence. Then Camden's voice, lower but no less intense. "That was a figure of speech. I didn't mean—" "You meant every word. You meant it when you called me dead weight. Simone meant it when she said I was an obligation that didn't serve your vision. And you both meant it every time you took my money and gave nothing back."
Nothing back? We gave you access to your granddaughter. We let you be part of our lives. Let me? Eleanor's voice cracked. You let me pay your mortgage. You let me co-sign your loans. You let me drain my retirement so you could live in a mansion and drive luxury cars. That's not generosity, Camden. That's exploitation. This is unbelievable, Simone said. After everything we've done for you. What? Rosa's voice cut through, sharp and unexpected. Eleanor's neighbor had moved to the door, her phone still recording. What exactly have you done for her? Name one thing. Who the hell are you? Simone demanded. I'm the person documenting this conversation, so please tell me what you've done for Eleanor, besides take her money and call her names. Silence. That's what I thought, Rosa said. Mom, please. Camden's voice changed, taking on a pleading quality Eleanor recognized from his childhood. Please, can we just talk about this like adults, face to face? I'm sure we can work something out. We can work it out through our lawyers. You have copies of the documents. You know what I'm asking for. The ball is in your court. The ball? Mom, you're asking me to buy you out of a house I live in, to refinance cars I need for work, to pay back money you gave as gifts? They weren't gifts, Camden. They were loans, and I have the text messages where you promised to pay me back. Another silence. Longer this time. Eleanor could practically hear Camden's mind working, trying to figure out his next angle. Fine, he said finally. Fine. We'll get a lawyer, we'll fight this. And when we do, everyone will know what kind of mother abandons her son over money. And everyone will know what kind of son drains his mother's retirement and calls her dead weight. I wonder which story people will find more sympathetic. You're really doing this. Camden's voice was flat now, cold. You're really going to destroy everything over your hurt feelings. No, Eleanor said quietly. You destroyed everything when you forgot I was a person and not just a bank account. I'm just cleaning up the mess. She heard footsteps retreating, then a car door slamming. Through the window, Rosa watched them drive away. They're gone, Rosa said. Eleanor sank under her couch, her legs suddenly weak. Nadine's voice came through the phone, which Eleanor had forgotten she was still holding. Eleanor, are you all right? I don't know, Eleanor said honestly. I can't believe that just happened. You did great. Rosa, did you get it all recorded? Every word, Rosa confirmed. Perfect. Send it to me immediately. Eleanor, I need you to document this. Date, time, what was said. Camden just did us a huge favor by coming here and making threats. Those were threats? We'll fight this, and everyone will know what kind of mother you are. Yes, those were threats. Implicit ones, but threats nonetheless. It shows a pattern of intimidation, which strengthens our position. Now, I need you to do something else. I need you to go to your bank in person and speak with the manager. You need to protect your remaining assets. An hour later, Eleanor sat in a private office at Southwest Community Credit Union, across from Patrick Morrison, the branch manager who'd helped her open her accounts 20 years ago. Patrick was in his 50s now, graying at the temples, his expression concerned as he reviewed the documents Eleanor had brought. Eleanor, I have to say, in all the years I've known you, I never thought I'd see something like this. Your son has access to your accounts?
He's not supposed to, but I gave him my debit card once for an emergency, and I think he memorized the number. And he has my online banking password because he helped me set it up. Patrick's expression darkened. Has there been any unauthorized activity? Eleanor pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. I'm not sure. That's why I'm here. I need you to help me look. For the next 40 minutes, Patrick walked Eleanor through her accounts, transaction by transaction. What they found made Eleanor's blood run cold. Small transfers she didn't remember authorizing. $200 here, $500 there, always just under the amount that would trigger an alert. Patrick traced them back. They'd been happening for 18 months, totaling nearly $23,000. This is fraud, Patrick said flatly. These withdrawals weren't authorized by you. No, never. Then we need to file a report. Eleanor, I'm legally obligated to report this. We'll freeze your accounts, issue you new cards, new passwords, and I strongly recommend you file a police report. I feel sick. He's been stealing from me. Yes, I'm sorry, but yes, he has. Patrick printed out the transaction history, highlighting every unauthorized transfer. Then he opened a new account for Eleanor, one Camden knew nothing about. They transferred all her remaining funds into it, $17,447, all that was left of her retirement after 5 years of supporting Camden's lifestyle. I'm also going to recommend you set up automatic transfers. Your Social Security and pension direct deposits should go into this new account. And Eleanor, he looked at her seriously, you need to consider filing charges. He's my son!
He's a thief. Patrick's voice was gentle but firm. And if you don't hold him accountable, he'll do this to someone else. Eleanor left the bank with a folder full of documentation and a sick feeling in her stomach. Rosa was waiting in the car and took one look at Eleanor's face before putting a hand on her arm. What did they find? He's been stealing from me for over a year. Small amounts, but it adds up to $23,000. Rosa's hand tightened. Mija, you need to call the police. I know, but first I need to call Nadine. Nadine answered immediately, and Eleanor explained what the bank had found. There was a long silence on the other end. Eleanor, Nadine said finally, this changes everything. With evidence of theft, we have leverage, real leverage. Camden could face criminal charges. I don't want to send him to prison. You don't have to, but the threat of it will bring him to the negotiating table very quickly. Let me make some calls. After Eleanor hung up, she sat in the passenger seat of Rose's car, staring at the bank documents in her lap. $23,000. Stolen. Not borrowed, not temporarily needed. Stolen. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making a huge mistake. When Dad finds out what you're doing, you're going to regret this. It took Eleanor a moment to realize the message was from Camden's younger brother, Garrett. She hadn't heard from him in over a year. Another text. Family is supposed to stick together. You're tearing us apart over money. Eleanor typed back, family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't call each other dead weight. Ask your brother about the $23,000 he took from my account without permission. She blocked Garrett's number and leaned her head back against the seat. How many more of them are going to come out of the woodwork? All of them, Rosa said grimly. They're circling the wagons. But you know what? Let them. You have documentation, you have witnesses, you have the law on your side. Eleanor's phone rang again. This time, it was Nadine. Eleanor, I've spoken with the fraud division at your bank and with a colleague who specializes in elder financial abuse. We're building a case, but I need you to do something difficult. I need you to file a police report. Today?
Right now. The sooner we establish this pattern of theft, the stronger our position. I'll meet you at the Tempe Police Department in 30 minutes. Eleanor looked at Rosa, who nodded. I'll drive you. The Tempe Police Department was a squat, modern building that smelled like industrial cleaner and burnt coffee. Eleanor sat in a small interview room across from Officer Jennifer Martinez, a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Nadine sat beside Eleanor, her briefcase open, documents organized and ready. Rosa had stayed in the waiting area, but her presence was a comfort. Miss Fitzgerald, I need you to walk me through everything, starting from the beginning. Take your time. So, Eleanor did. She told the story of the past 5 years, the mortgage, the business loan, the cars, the temporary help that never ended. She explained about the joint accounts, about giving Camden access for emergencies, about the unauthorized transfers Patrick had found. Officer Martinez took notes, her expression growing more serious with each detail. When Eleanor finished, the officer sat back in her chair. Ms. Fitzgerald, what you're describing is textbook financial exploitation. In Arizona, this falls under elder abuse statutes. Your son accessed your accounts without permission and systematically drained them. That's theft, plain and simple. But I gave him access initially. For emergencies, not for ongoing, unauthorized withdrawals, and certainly not for nearly $25,000 in transfers you didn't approve. Officer Martinez pulled out a form. I'm going to file this as a theft report and refer it to our financial crimes unit. They'll investigate and determine if criminal charges are warranted. Eleanor's hands trembled. What happens then? That depends on what they find. But Ms. Fitzgerald, I need you to understand something. Men like your son, they don't stop. They'll find new ways to access your money, new ways to manipulate you. The only way to protect yourself is to cut them off completely and enforce consequences. After they finished at the police station, Nadine walked Eleanor and Rosa out to the parking lot. The Arizona sun was brutal, the heat radiating off the asphalt in waves. Eleanor, I know this is hard, Nadine said, but you've done everything right. You've documented everything, you've protected your assets, you've involved law enforcement. Now we wait. Wait for what? For Camden to realize he's cornered, for him to understand that you're serious, and for him to come to the table ready to negotiate. Nadine squeezed Eleanor's shoulder. Go home, rest. Tomorrow we'll start working on the mortgage and loan situations, but today you've done enough. Back at her apartment, Eleanor collapsed on her couch. Rosa made tea and sat beside her, not saying anything, just being present. Eleanor's phone was mercifully quiet. No more calls, no more texts. Either Camden had run out of numbers to use, or he was regrouping, plotting his next move. What am I doing, Rosa? Eleanor asked quietly. That's my son, my baby.
Your baby grew into a man who stole from you, Rosa said gently. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. It doesn't feel loving. It feels like I'm destroying my own family. No, mija. Camden destroyed the family when he chose money over you. You're just refusing to keep enabling him. Eleanor's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, expecting another angry message. But it was from Ivy. From Ivy's tablet. Are you okay? Dad is really mad. Eleanor typed back. I'm fine, sweetheart. This is just grown-up stuff. It's not your worry. I know, but I worry anyway. I love you. I love you too, baby, so much. Eleanor set down her phone and looked at Rosa. Ivy. I have to make sure whatever happens, Ivy is protected. Then we'll make sure of it, Rosa said firmly. But first, you need to take care of yourself. That night, Eleanor lay in bed, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. She kept replaying the day. Camden at her door, Patrick's revelation about the theft, Officer Martinez's sympathetic but firm expression. She thought about the spreadsheet on her laptop, about the $514,200 she'd given over 5 years, about the $23,000 stolen from her account,
about the house she co-owned, the cars she co-signed, the business loan backed by her retirement. She thought about Thomas, about what he would say if he could see this mess. He'd been a gentleman, patient and kind, but he'd also been fiercely protective of his family. He would have stopped this years ago. He would have seen what Eleanor had been too close to see, that Camden wasn't struggling, wasn't building a business, wasn't temporarily in need of help. Camden was simply taking, and he would keep taking until there was nothing left. Eleanor opened her notebook in the darkness and wrote by the light of her phone. Day 2. I filed a police report against my own son. The foundation isn't just cracking, it's been removed entirely. Tomorrow, I find out if they can stand on their own or if the whole structure comes down. She closed the notebook and finally drifted off to sleep, exhausted, but strangely peaceful. The worst part was over. She'd made her choice. She'd drawn her line. Now she just had to hold it. Eleanor woke to the sound of her phone vibrating on the nightstand, a persistent, angry buzz that dragged her from sleep at 6:23 a.m. She reached for it groggily, her eyes adjusting to the bright screen in the dim bedroom. 12 missed calls, 47 text messages, all from numbers she didn't recognize. She sat up, her heart already racing, and opened the most recent message. It was from a number with a 480 area code. This is Richard Pemberton from Pemberton and Associates. I represent Camden and Simone Fitzgerald. We need to schedule a meeting immediately to discuss your recent actions. Please call my office at your earliest convenience. So they'd hired a lawyer. Eleanor had expected this, but seeing it in writing made it real in a way that tightened her chest. She scrolled through the other messages. Most were variations on the same theme. Lawyers wanting meetings, Camden's business partners concerned about the situation, even a message from Camden's ex-wife, Lydia, Ivy's mother, asking what was going on. But it was Simone's message that made Eleanor's blood run cold. You're going to regret this. We have options you haven't even considered. Think about Ivy before you burn everything down. Eleanor screenshotted the message immediately and forwarded it to Nadine with a note. Is this a threat involving my granddaughter? Nadine's response came within 2 minutes. Yes, document everything. Don't respond. I'm calling their attorney now. Eleanor got out of bed, her legs unsteady. She made coffee with shaking hands, trying to process what was happening. She'd known there would be pushback, but the speed and coordination of it was overwhelming. Camden and Simone had clearly spent yesterday, after the confrontation at her door, after the police report, marshalling their forces. Rosa knocked on her door at 7:15 a.m., holding a bag of pastries from the Mexican bakery down the street. I saw your light on, figured you might need backup. They hired a lawyer, Eleanor said, letting her in, and Simone made some kind of threat about Ivy. Rosa's expression darkened as she read the messages on Eleanor's phone. Hija de la chingada. She's trying to use that baby as leverage. Can she do that? Can she keep me from seeing Ivy? Not legally. You have grandparent visitation rights in Arizona, especially since you've been Ivy's primary caregiver 3 days a week. Rosa set down the pastries and pulled out her own phone. My daughter is a family lawyer. Let me call her. While Rosa made the call, Eleanor's phone rang again. Nadine's name appeared on the screen. I spoke with Richard Pemberton, Nadine said without preamble. He's aggressive, but not particularly bright. He tried to intimidate me with threats of a defamation suit. Defamation? Apparently, Camden is claiming you're spreading lies about him to damage his business reputation. I told Pemberton that truth is an absolute defense to defamation, and we have documentation of every claim we've made. There was satisfaction in Nadine's voice. He backed down quickly when I mentioned the police report and the bank fraud investigation. What happens now? Now we negotiate. They want a meeting, all parties present with attorneys. I've agreed to tomorrow at 2 p.m. at my office. Eleanor, I need you to be prepared. They're going to try to make you the villain. They're going to cry, they're going to accuse, they're going to make promises they have no intention of keeping. Can you handle that? Eleanor thought about Camden's cold eyes when he'd called her dead weight, about the spreadsheet with its devastating totals, about Officer Martinez's words. Men like your son, they don't stop. I can handle it, she said.
Good, because this is where we establish the terms. This is where you get your life back. After she hung up, Rose's daughter Sophia called back with advice about grandparent rights. Eleanor took notes, feeling slightly more grounded with each piece of information. Sophia explained that in Arizona, grandparents who had established a significant relationship with a grandchild couldn't be arbitrarily cut off without cause. Eleanor's 3 days a week custody arrangement, her years of caregiving, her financial support of Ivy's education, all of it established her legal standing. The court will prioritize Ivy's best interests, Sophia explained, and it's clearly in Ivy's best interest to maintain her relationship with you. Your son and his wife would have to prove you're a danger to Ivy, which they can't do. What if they try? Then they'll look petty and vindictive, which won't help their case in any other legal matters you might be pursuing. Sophia paused. Mrs. Fitzgerald, may I ask, are there other legal matters? Eleanor looked at the pile of documents on her coffee table. Several. Then I'd suggest they'll want to avoid family court. It would expose their financial situation to scrutiny, which I'm guessing they don't want. After the call, Eleanor sat at her kitchen table and opened her laptop. She pulled up the spreadsheet again, but this time, she added a new column, demands for settlement. She typed methodically. 1. Immediate removal from mortgage, refinance within 60 days or forced sale. 2. Buyout of property equity, $132,000. 3. Removal as cosigner on vehicles, refinance within 30 days or surrender vehicles. 4. Release from business loan, find alternative collateral within 90 days. 5. Repayment of stolen funds, $23,000. 6. Repayment of documented loans, $89,000. 7. Guaranteed visitation with Ivy, 3 days per week minimum. 8. No contact except through attorneys or regarding Ivy's welfare. Eleanor stared at the list. It was aggressive, she knew. It was asking for nearly $250,000 in immediate cash and loan releases. Camden and Simone would never agree to all of it. But that was the point. You asked for everything, then negotiated down to what you actually needed. Nadine had taught her that. Rosa read over her shoulder. You think they can pay this? The house has equity. They can refinance, take out a home equity loan, or sell. But that's not my problem anymore. Eleanor saved the document and sent it to Nadine. I'm done making their problems my problems. The rest of Monday passed in a strange, suspended tension. Eleanor half expected Camden to show up at her door again, but her apartment stayed quiet. She spent the afternoon organizing documents, printing emails, highlighting bank statements. Every piece of paper was another brick in the wall she was building between herself and her son. At 3:15, her phone chimed with a reminder, pick up Ivy. Eleanor stared at the notification. She had kept this one appointment, this one commitment, but now with Simone's threat hanging over her, she wasn't sure what to do. She called Nadine. Go pick her up, Nadine said immediately. You have every right to maintain your relationship with Ivy. If they try to stop you, we document it. If they use Ivy as a weapon, we use it against them in court. I don't want Ivy in the middle of this. Then Camden and Simone shouldn't have put her there. Go get your granddaughter, Eleanor. Show them you're not backing down. So Eleanor drove to Desert Willow Elementary, her hands tight on the steering wheel. She parked in her usual spot in the pickup line and waited, watching the school doors open. At 3:25, children began streaming out, backpacks bouncing, voices calling goodbye. Ivy emerged at 3:28, her eyes scanning the line of cars. When she spotted Eleanor's Honda, her face lit up, a genuine, uncomplicated smile that made Eleanor's chest ache. The little girl ran to the car and climbed into the back seat. Grandma Ellie, I didn't know if you'd come. Of course I came, sweetheart. I always come on Mondays. Eleanor pulled out of the line, checking her mirrors obsessively, half expecting Camden or Simone to appear and make a scene. Mom said you might not, Ivy said, buckling her seatbelt. She said you were mad at Dad and you might not want to see us anymore. Eleanor's hands tightened on the wheel. I'm not mad at you, Ivy. Never at you. You and I were separate from all the grown-up stuff. That's what I told Mom. Ivy pulled out her homework folder. Can we go to your place? I have a math worksheet and I'm stuck on the word problems. Of course we can. At Eleanor's apartment, they fell into their familiar routine. Ivy at the kitchen table with her homework, Eleanor making apple slices with peanut butter, the radio playing softly in the background.
For an hour, Eleanor could almost pretend everything was normal. But at 5 o'clock, when Eleanor's phone rang, Simone's number, one Eleanor hadn't blocked because of Ivy. "Don't answer it," Ivy said quietly. She'd been watching Eleanor, her pencil frozen over her math worksheet. "I have to, honey. It might be about picking you up, or—" "It won't be." Ivy's voice was flat, older than her 9 years. "She's just going to yell at you." Eleanor answered anyway. "Hello? Where is my daughter?" "She's with me doing her homework just like every Monday." "You don't have permission to take her anymore. Bring her home now." Eleanor felt her temper flare. "I have every right to pick up Ivy from school. We've had this arrangement for 3 years."
We had that arrangement when you were part of this family. Now you're not. You made that very clear. Simone's voice rose. You want to cut us off? Fine. But you don't get to cherry pick which parts of our lives you stay involved in. You don't get access to Ivy anymore. That's not your decision to make unilaterally. Actually, it is. I'm her mother, Camden is her father, and we've decided that your current mental state makes you an unsuitable influence on our daughter. Eleanor's vision went red. My mental state? I filed a police report because your husband stole $23,000 from me. Allegedly stole, and even if that were true, weaponizing the police against your own son shows exactly what kind of person you are. What kind of grandmother? Ivy doesn't need that toxicity in her life. Eleanor looked at Ivy, who had her hands pressed over her ears, her eyes squeezed shut. The little girl had heard every word. Simone, listen to me very carefully, Eleanor said, her voice low and controlled. I will bring Ivy home at our usual time, 6:30, just like every Monday. But if you try to use her as a weapon in this conflict, if you try to keep me from my granddaughter out of spite, I will file for formal grandparent visitation rights, and I will win. Do you understand me? There was a shocked silence on the other end. You're threatening me? I'm informing you of my legal rights. There's a difference. Eleanor ended the call and immediately texted Nadine. Simone just tried to deny me access to Ivy. I have it on recording if needed. She'd started recording the call the moment Simone's tone turned hostile. Nadine's response, perfect. That's evidence of parentalion. Keep the recording safe. Eleanor knelt beside Ivy's chair. Sweetheart, I'm sorry you had to hear that. Ivy opened her eyes. They were wet with tears. Are they going to make me stop seeing you? No, I won't let that happen. Eleanor pulled Ivy into a hug. You and I are family, and nothing your dad or Simone do will change that. Promise? I promise. They finished homework in subdued silence. At 6:25, Eleanor drove Ivy home, her stomach churning. When they pulled into the driveway, Camden was waiting outside, his arms crossed, his expression thunderous. Eleanor walked Ivy to the door, her hand protectively on her granddaughter's shoulder. Camden blocked their path. You're not welcome here anymore, he said flatly. I'm dropping off your daughter after our scheduled time together, which I have every legal right to. Legal rights, Camden laughed, the sound bitter. Everything's about legal rights with you now, isn't it? Not about family, not about loyalty, just money and lawyers and legal rights. You made it about money when you stole from me, Eleanor said quietly. You made it about lawyers when you hired Richard Pemberton. I'm just protecting myself. Protecting yourself, Camden's voice rose. You filed a police report. Do you have any idea what that could do to my business? To my reputation? Do you have any idea what stealing $23,000 did to my retirement? To my ability to survive? Ivy tugged on Eleanor's hand. Grandma Elliot, can I go inside? Of course, baby. I'll see you Wednesday. You will not, Camden said. Ivy won't be available on Wednesday, or Friday, or any other day. You want to treat us like criminals? Fine. But you don't get to keep playing grandmother. Eleanor pulled out her phone and opened the voice recording app, making sure Camden could see it. Say that again, please? About denying me access to Ivy? I want to make sure I have it clear for my attorney. Camden's face went pale, then red. You're recording me?
Just like I recorded Simone's call earlier, the one where she said my mental state makes me unsuitable to see my granddaughter, I'm sure the family court judge will be very interested in these recordings when I file for formal visitation rights. You wouldn't. Try me. Eleanor met his eyes steadily. You called me deadweight, Camden. You stole from me. You used me. And now you're trying to take away the one pure good thing in this whole mess. My relationship with Ivy. So yes, I would absolutely take you to court, and I would win. Camden stared at her for a long moment. I saw something shift in his expression. Calculation, recalibration. He was realizing, perhaps for the first time, that she was serious, that she wasn't bluffing. Mom, he said, his voice changing, taking on a pleading quality, can we please just talk about this? Rationally, without lawyers and threats? We're talking tomorrow at 2 p.m. in Nadine Chen's office, with lawyers present. That's the only conversation I'm willing to have. But Mom, that's so formal, so adversarial. We're family. We should be able to work this out between us. No, we shouldn't. Because every time I've trusted you, you've taken advantage. Every time I've helped you, you've asked for more. Every time I've loved you, you've treated it like a transaction. I'm done working things out between us. From now on, everything goes through lawyers. She turned and walked back to her car, her heart pounding. She half expected Camden to follow, to grab her arm, to make another scene. But he just stood there, watching her leave. As Eleanor drove away, she saw Ivy in the front window, her small hand pressed against the glass. Eleanor waved, and Ivy waved back. And Eleanor had to pull over 2 blocks later because she was crying too hard to see the road.
Tuesday morning arrived gray and oppressive, unusual for Arizona in August. Eleanor dressed carefully for the 2 p.m. meeting. Her best slacks, a button-down blouse, her mother's pearl earrings. Armor for battle. Rosa insisted on driving her to Nadine's office in downtown Tempe. You shouldn't be alone for this, Rosa said firmly. Nadine's office was on the 4th floor of a modern building, all glass and steel. Eleanor had been here a few times before, for Thomas's will, for some estate planning, but it felt different now. More serious. More final. Nadine met them in the lobby, her expression professional, but warm. Eleanor, Rosa, right on time. Camden and his attorney are already in the conference room. Are they? Eleanor felt her stomach clench. They arrived 30 minutes early. Classic intimidation tactic. They want you to walk into a room where they're already settled, already comfortable. We're going to let them sit there a few more minutes. Let them get anxious. Nadine smiled slightly. Come to my office. Let's review strategy. In Nadine's private office, they went over Eleanor's demands one more time. Nadine had organized everything into a formal settlement proposal, complete with legal citations and timelines. They're going to push back on everything, Nadine warned. Pemberton will bluster, Camden will play the wounded son, Simone will probably cry, but we hold firm. We have leverage. The police report, the bank fraud investigation, the evidence of theft. They need this to go away more than you need to compromise. What if they refuse everything? Then we file a civil suit for the stolen money, we petition for partition of the house, and we let the fraud investigation proceed. But they won't refuse everything, Eleanor. They can't afford to. Nadine gathered her papers. Ready? Eleanor took a deep breath. Ready. The conference room was large, with a polished wood table and windows overlooking downtown Tempe. Camden sat on one side, Simone beside him, both of them in expensive business attire. Their attorney, Richard Pemberton, was a heavy-set man in his 50s with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Eleanor sat across from them, Nadine to her right, Rosa to her left, as moral support, not legal representation. The space between them felt like a chasm. Well, Pemberton said, folding his hands on the table, I think we can all agree this situation has gotten out of hand. Family matters should never escalate to this level of... Mr. Pemberton, Nadine interrupted smoothly,
Let's dispense with the pleasantries. Your clients have exploited my client financially for 5 years, culminating in outright theft of over $23,000. We're here to discuss terms of restitution, not to reminisce about family bonds they violated. Pemberton's smile faltered. That's a very aggressive interpretation of. It's the interpretation supported by bank records, police reports, and recorded phone conversations. Nadine slid a folder across the table. That's a copy of our settlement proposal. I suggest you review it carefully. Pemberton opened the folder, his eyes scanning the pages. Eleanor watched his expression shift from dismissive to concerned to alarmed. Camden leaned over, reading over his attorney's shoulder, and I saw the moment he registered the numbers. His face went white. "This is ridiculous," Simone said, her voice sharp. "You're asking for $250,000? We don't have that kind of money." "You have equity in a house worth $890,000. You have 2 luxury vehicles. You have a business that's apparently successful enough to require investor meetings and product launches. You have assets, Mrs. Fitzgerald. What you don't have is my client's retirement fund anymore." "Mom," Camden said, his voice strained, "this is insane. We can't possibly pay all of this. The house payment alone, if you're not helping anymore, we're going to default. The business—" "We'll have to find alternative financing," Eleanor heard herself say. Her voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking under the table. "Just like any other business that doesn't have access to their owner's mother's retirement account." "But we had an understanding. We had an arrangement where I helped you temporarily. It was never supposed to be permanent. And it certainly never included permission to steal from my bank account." Eleanor leaned forward. "Camden, do you even understand what you've done? I'm 73 years old. I'm living on Social Security and a pension. I should have $400,000 in retirement savings right now. Instead, I have $14,000. Because of you. We always planned to pay you back. When? When were you planning to pay me back? After the next investor meeting? After the next product launch? After you finished the basement renovation I saw photos on Simone's Instagram?" Simone's face flushed. "That renovation was necessary for what? For posting pretty pictures online while my retirement account emptied?" I felt tears threatening but pushed them back. "Do you know what Thomas would say if he could see this? He worked 30 years as an electrician to build that nest egg. 30 years of early mornings and late nights and weekends. And you spent it on a house you don't need, cars you can't afford, and a lifestyle you haven't earned."
Mrs. Fitzgerald, Pemberton interjected, "emotional appeals aren't helpful here. Neither is theft, Mr. Pemberton, but here we are." Nadine tapped the folder. "Your clients have 60 days to refinance the mortgage and remove my client as co-borrower. They have 30 days to handle the vehicles. They have 90 days to find alternative collateral for the business loan. And they have 15 days to begin repayment on the stolen funds, or we proceed with criminal charges." "Criminal charges?" Camden's voice cracked. "Mom, you wouldn't. You can't. I'm your son. And I'm your mother, the woman who raised you alone after your father left, the woman who worked double shifts as a nurse to pay for your college, the woman who helped you start your business, buy your house, build your life." Eleanor's voice was quiet now, but fierce. "And you called me dead weight?" The room went silent. Simone looked away. Camden's eyes were wet. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did. You meant every word. And even if you didn't, you meant every action that came before it. Every time you asked for money and didn't pay it back. Every time you accessed my account without permission. Every time you treated my support like it was owed to you, instead of given from love." Eleanor stood up. "I'm done being your bank, Camden. I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being invisible until you need something. From now on, you carry your own weight." She turned to Nadine. "I'm ready to go." "Wait." Camden stood too, his chair scraping loudly. "Please, Mom, please, can I just talk to you alone?
Just for 5 minutes? Eleanor looked at Nadine, who nodded slightly. 5 minutes. I'll be right outside. After the lawyers and Rosa and Simone filed out, Eleanor and Camden stood on opposite sides of the conference table, the settlement proposal sitting between them like a chasm. I'm sorry, Camden said finally. I'm so sorry. You're right, about all of it. I took advantage, I got comfortable with your help, and I stopped seeing it as help. I started seeing it as just how things were. And when I tried to stop, you called me dead weight. I was stressed. The business is barely breaking even. We're hemorrhaging money. The investors keep pulling out at the last minute. The product launches keep failing. I've been barely holding it together, and when you showed up with those papers, I snapped. Eleanor felt a familiar tug, the instinct to comfort, to fix, to help. But she resisted it. That's not my problem anymore, Camden. I know it's not, but I'm trying to explain. No, you're trying to make excuses. There's a difference. Eleanor moved toward the door. You have 60 days to refinance the mortgage. If you can't do it, the house will be sold and we'll split the equity. That's not negotiable. Mom, if we sell the house, where will Ivy live? Where will we go? You'll figure it out, just like millions of other families do without their mother's retirement funding their lifestyle. Eleanor opened the door. 60 days, Camden. Not 1 day more. She walked out, leaving him standing alone in the conference room. It should have felt like victory. It should have felt like justice. Instead, it just felt like grief. In the elevator, Rosa put her arm around Eleanor's shoulders. You did good, mija. I made my son cry. Your son stole from you. He's crying because he got caught, not because he's sorry. Rosa squeezed her shoulder. Don't let guilt creep back in now. You've come too far. Nadine was checking her phone. Pemberton just texted. They want to counterpropose. They're offering to pay back the stolen funds in installments over 2 years, and they're willing to refinance the vehicles within 60 days. But they want to keep you on the mortgage for another year while they improve their credit scores. No, Eleanor said immediately. They can refinance now or sell. I'm not staying on that mortgage another year. That's what I told him. Nadine smiled slightly. He's panicking. They're in worse financial shape than they let on. I'd bet money that house is the only thing keeping their whole operation afloat. What happens if they can't refinance? Then we force the sale. You get your equity, they have to downsize, and maybe they learn to live within their means. Nadine looked at Eleanor seriously. Are you prepared for that? For them to lose the house? Eleanor thought about the mansion in Scottsdale, the one she'd helped buy. She thought about Ivy's bedroom, decorated in purple and white, with a window seat and built-in bookshelves. She thought about the memories that house held. Holidays, birthdays, Sunday dinners. Then she thought about her own apartment, small and sparse, with furniture that temporarily lived in Camden's garage. She thought about her bank account with its pathetic balance. She thought about the word dead weight. Yes, she said firmly, I'm prepared. The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Camden tried to reach Eleanor directly 17 times. She let every call go to voicemail. Pemberton sent counter-proposals that Nadine rejected systematically. The bank fraud investigation continued, with Officer Martinez calling Eleanor twice for additional information. On Thursday afternoon, Eleanor picked up Ivy from school as usual. Neither Camden nor Simone tried to stop her. Nadine had sent them a formal letter about grandparent rights, and apparently that had been enough to back them down. In Eleanor's kitchen, over apple slices and homework, Ivy asked the question Eleanor had been dreading. Are my parents going to have to sell our house? Eleanor set down the knife she'd been using to cut apples. I don't know, sweetie. Maybe. Because of you?
Because of the choices they made. Eleanor sat down across from Ivy. Honey, I know this is confusing,
But adults sometimes make mistakes with money, and those mistakes have consequences. Mom says you're being mean. She says you're punishing them. Do you think I'm being mean? Ivy was quiet for a long moment, her fingers playing with a slice of apple. No, I think they were mean to you first. I heard what Dad said. About you being dead weight. That was really mean. It hurt my feelings, Eleanor admitted, a lot. But you're not dead weight. Ivy struggled for words. You're like the ground. Like, you hold everything up. And they're mad because you're not holding them up anymore. Out of the mouths of babes, Eleanor thought. That's a very wise way to think about it. So, if they have to sell the house and we have to move somewhere smaller, that's because they can't stand up by themselves, right? Right. Ivy nodded slowly. Okay, I can live somewhere smaller, as long as I still get to see you. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. You'll always get to see me, baby, always. That evening, after she dropped Ivy home, with Camden waiting sullenly at the door but not interfering, Eleanor's phone rang. An unknown number, but this time when she answered, it wasn't Camden or Simone or their lawyer. Mrs. Fitzgerald, this is Detective Sarah Gomez with the Tempe Police Financial Crimes Unit. I've been reviewing your case regarding the unauthorized withdrawals from your bank account. Eleanor's heart hammered. Yes? I wanted to let you know that we've completed our preliminary investigation and we've found sufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges against Camden Fitzgerald for theft and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. However, before we proceed, I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak with me about how you'd like to move forward. What are my options? You can choose to pursue criminal charges, which could result in felony prosecution, or you can choose to handle this civilly, through restitution agreements and court orders. Many families in your situation choose the civil route, but I want you to know that you have the right to pursue criminal charges if you wish. Eleanor thought about Camden in handcuffs, about Ivy visiting her father in jail, about the public record, the news articles, the shame. But she also thought about the $23,000, about the pattern of exploitation, about what Officer Martinez had said. If you don't hold him accountable, he'll do this to someone else. Can I have some time to think about it? Eleanor asked. Of course. But Mrs. Fitzgerald, whatever you decide, make sure it's what you need, not what you think your son deserves. This is about protecting yourself, not punishing him. After she hung up, Eleanor sat in the silence of her apartment, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She called Rosa, then Nadine, then Sophia. She made lists, she prayed, even though she hadn't prayed in years. And finally, at 11:47 p.m., she made her decision. She would give Camden one chance, one opportunity to make this right without criminal charges. But if he failed, if he missed a payment, if he violated any term of their agreement, if he tried to manipulate Ivy or threaten Eleanor again, she would pursue charges without hesitation. It wasn't mercy exactly. It was strategic compassion, the kind of love that holds people accountable because accountability is a form of care. Eleanor texted Nadine, "Tell Pemberton we'll accept a modified settlement. Full details tomorrow, but this is their last chance. If they violate any term, I pursue criminal charges immediately." Nadine's response came quickly. "Understood. I'll draft the terms." "Eleanor, you're stronger than you know." Eleanor set down her phone and pulled out her notebook. In the dim light of her bedside lamp, she wrote, Day 6. I gave them an ultimatum. 60 days to remove me from the mortgage, 30 days for the vehicles, repayment of stolen funds in installments with strict penalties for missed payments. And if they fail, I will not hesitate. The foundation has been removed. Now we see if the structure can stand or if it collapses completely. Either way, I am no longer underneath it, bearing weight that was never mine to carry. She closed the notebook and turned off the light. Tomorrow, Nadine would present the final terms. Tomorrow, Camden and Simone would have to decide, accept accountability or face prosecution. Tomorrow, Eleanor would learn if her son could finally stand on his own. But tonight, for the first time in 6 years, Eleanor felt like herself again. Not dead weight, not a resource to be exploited, not invisible. Just Eleanor, a woman who had finally learned that the most powerful word in any language is no. The reckoning was complete.
Now came the consequences. 60 days later, Eleanor stood in the parking lot of Southwest Community Credit Union, watching through the window as Patrick Morrison processed the paperwork. The mortgage had been refinanced, her name was off the deed, the house in Scottsdale was no longer her responsibility. Camden and Simone had managed it, barely. They'd taken out a high-interest home equity loan, maxed out new credit cards, and according to Ivy, were now driving older, more practical cars. The mansion remains theirs, but just barely, and I suspect it wouldn't be long before they'd have to downsize anyway. The stolen funds were being repaid, $500 per month, automatically drafted from Camden's account, with severe penalties for missed payments. So far, every payment has arrived on time. Eleanor picked up Ivy from school 3 days a week. She and Camden communicated only about logistics, only through text, only about Ivy. Simone didn't communicate with her at all.
It wasn't the relationship Eleanor had once hoped for with her son, but it was honest, it was bounded, it was sustainable. And Eleanor was free. She had $146,000 from the equity buyout sitting in a new account, properly invested this time. Her retirement was rebuilt, not fully, but enough. She'd moved into a nicer apartment, bought furniture that was actually hers, and started volunteering at a senior center, helping other elderly people avoid financial exploitation. Rosa remained her closest friend. Ivy remained her greatest joy, and Eleanor remained, finally and fully, herself. As she drove home from the bank, she passed the mansion in Scottsdale. She didn't stop. She didn't look wistfully at what might have been. She'd learned the hard way that the weight of other people's lives wasn't hers to carry. And she'd learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply put down the burden and walk away.